Let's go and move with life. Let it go. Something new tonight. Let's go and move with life. Let it go. Something new tonight.
G'day guys, welcome to the Unofficial Scorecard Podcast, a podcast where we talk all things boxing and occasionally the wider world of combat sports. This is episode 68, and joining me for the second time today, guys, is returning mate of the show, Lynden Hosking. Lynden's a great guy. I had so much fun speaking to him, I think in September last year, something like that. And I always want to not reach out to people too closely together. I don't want to annoy them, you know what I mean? But I've been wanting to talk to Lynden for a little bit of time again. We had so much fun the first time, and the second time was absolutely no exception to that rule. So, what did we talk about, guys? Well, we obviously stuck to our monthly schedule. We went as far back as Opataya Breeders 2, the rematch. We moved all the way through the fights coming up this weekend. Also, we touched on Chris Billman-Smith and Richard Riakporhe, which may have some Jai Opataya, implications. And also, Lynden, he thinks outside the box too. Lynden dropped a couple of little thoughts on the potential of Jai's immediate path in his career, which took me by surprise, and I'll tell you what, he might not be wrong. We also jumped straight into the Subaru Matthias Liam Parrow World Title Challenge for our guy Liam Parrow. We went through the schedule. It was great to talk to Lynden about the PBS's emergence, Ace Boxing and 7 Plus partnership, and get his not only his expert opinion on the fights as an Olympian and such a great competitor and a fighter himself, but also Lynden's promoted. So to get the blend of the two perspectives, I think Lynden just covers the sport in the way that he's able to use his experience and his opinion and sort of educate us that don't have either of those two sets of experience. So I had a really good time speaking about the PBS. We touched on the Wildfighter show, some overseas fights with Juan Francisco Estrada, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, the excellent free on Fox and KO main event from No Limit, Nathaniel May and Jose Matias Romero, and we finished it up with the main event pay-per-view with Sam Goodman versus Chinoi Warawat / Thatchtana Luangfon, depending on what search engine you're using will be what his name will be. But anyway, guys, this was an excellent episode. I had so much fun talking to Lynden. I always learn a lot when I do these episodes, and I learn a lot from multiple different aspects of the sport when Lynden gets to share his thoughts with me. So we'll keep this nice and short, guys, and we'll jump to my chat with Lynden now. All right, well, here I am joined by Aussie Olympic and Commonwealth Games boxing team member, former and maybe future promoter, the creator and host of Boxing Deep Dive, available globally on YouTube multiple times per week. The man us boxing fans all live vicariously through when he's on one of his regular overseas world title fight trips. Returning mate of the show, Lynden Hosking. Lynden, funnily enough, we were just talking about your overseas world title fight trips, and it's true, we do live vicariously through you. But thanks for coming back on, mate.
No worries at all, mate. And it's always good to come on. And but no hope that I'll ever go back to promoting, mate. I'll put a line through that right here.
Well, I went to about 5 or 6 of your shows, and I enjoyed the hell out of all of them. So that was a bit of a selfish hint from me that maybe one day the fire will be burning again, sort of retired fighter style. But we'll see.
Happily in retirement. I think it's been about over 4 years now since I did it, and obviously COVID
What's
came.
What's going on here? You there, Lynden?
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, mate. I think I just had a bit of a glitch, but we're back now, so that's all good.
All good. Yeah,
but
it's been about 4 years since I've done a promotion, and no hurry to go back, I can tell you.
Yeah, no, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I can only imagine it's hard enough watching this sport, let alone being involved at any levels. I can imagine. But, mate, Lynden, got a few fights here, as we were speaking about before we started recording. We'll get through them sort of on that monthly schedule. But I think it's always important. Sometimes we have to go back before we go forward. The last time we did a pod a few weeks ago, I did sort of a knuckle-down in-depth preview of the Opataya Maris Breeders rematch with Anthony Cox, and we put our predictions out there. We both ultimately got the predictions right. We were a little bit wrong, so I've been dying to talk to someone about that fight. I'm sure you've covered it on your show multiple times, but yeah, Opataya Breeders 2, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I thought it was, for the first 9 rounds, I thought it was an absolute masterclass by Jai. I thought he fought really well. I thought he come in very well prepared. I thought he was better. Besides being physically prepared, I thought mentally he was a lot better prepared. I thought being the champion, technically not the champion, was he? It was for the vacant title, but we all regarded him as the champion. And I just thought for the first 9 rounds, he did exactly what he had to do. I thought Breeders barely laid a glove on him. At 20, had the accidental headbutt, of course, with the busted nose and everything else. It really seemed to offset Jai. And that was probably the only downside for me, is the way Jai reacted. Obviously, with the blood going in his mouth and in his eyes and everything like that, it would have been pretty hard. But I just think he didn't probably fight intelligently after that. He probably should have, in hindsight, boxed and moved and clinched and just did enough to get through. He hadn't lost a round barely up to that point. So that was a learning curve for him. But I think overall, apart from the last 3 rounds, I thought it was an absolute stellar performance by Jai, and on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big talking points for us when we were doing that preview with Coxie was sort of like, what adjustments could Breeders make? And the thing we sort of identified, well, he's got to get started earlier and he's got to push Jai back. He can't box with Jai. He just plays with the range too much. How are you going to catch that guy, especially coming off a multiple year layoff at, nearing 40 years old? And he just seemed to be stuck in the mud early. It almost looked to me like, and I thought Jai would be a little bit more aggressive too. It kind of looked a little bit like Jai was just doing enough to win the rounds. He was a little bit more aggressive, but it kind of looked like both guys' mindset was, God, that first fight was tough. I think Breeders was thinking, I'm going to have to go to hell here. I might just save a few rounds and do it later. And Jai was like, well, I could get more aggressive and open myself up, but this guy's tough as hell and he's rocked me badly before. If I can win these rounds, I'm just going to win them. But I get what you mean, those first sort of 8-9 rounds, and it got to that 9th round point. It was like, okay, well, Jai's definitely got the fight in the bag. The broken nose happens. Wasn't as bad as the broken jaw for sure, but that blood, even though it wasn't caused by a punch, just seemed to light the fire under Breeders' ass big time. Do you reckon there was a possibility in that fight, had Breeders started early, that he could have had that success earlier, or do you sort of just attribute it to old legs and taking a while to warm that engine up?
Yeah, look, I think that would have been his game plan, no doubt. The problem is that Jai Opetaia is a hell of a lot better fighter than he was a couple of years ago when they first fought. I'm sure he would have went out there with the aim of trying to rough Jai up, get in close, try and stop his movement and really bang him hard. But look, I just think, as I said, up until the 9th round, it was just all Jai Opetaia. And 39 years old again is Breeders, so it's easy to have a game plan. You've got to be able to put it into effect. But look, I think, yes, he started to land a few punches towards the end of the fight and had maybe Jai in a little bit of trouble. But let's say it, or tell it the way it is. I mean, the only reason he got anywhere near able to land punches on Jai is because Jai made it easy for him by standing right in front of him, when what he should have been doing is moving and, as I said before, moving, clinching, holding, whatever, stepping off, whatever it might be, just to get through the rounds. And I think he was really disappointed with himself after the fight, and probably rightfully so. He didn't fight a very smart fight in those last 3 rounds. But look, I just think it all came down to Jai Opetaia. I don't think it necessarily had anything to do with Breeders, except for the fact he showed a ton of heart, hung in there, almost took his chance. But end of the day, for me, it was all Jai Opetaia. And as I said, the only reason Breeders got back into the fight is because Jai allowed him to.
Yeah. And man, when we talk about pound for pound toughness and chins, Breeders, my God, like.
Yeah. And all due respect to him as well. I'm not trying to say that he wasn't up to Jai's level. He was. The fact of the matter is, he's 39 years of age. He's on the downside of his career. Jai's on the way up. And I just thought that's the way it looked in the fight, is that you've got a fighter who improved so much since the first fight. Breeders, if anything, had probably gone backwards a little bit. He hadn't fought since that the first Jai fight. And that's exactly what it looked like to me. A 28-year-old fighter approaching his prime in champion mode now against a 39-year-old fighter that was on the downside of his career. So all due respect to Marius Breeders, but Jai to me now is just on another level.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And when we break it down sort of box rec, wins and losses style, that's 2 wins over the second best guy in the division for Jai now. He's clearly made it known that he wants the WBO belt, which is actually, funnily enough, we've got a fair bit going on this weekend, but it is being contested for this weekend between the champion Chris Billum-Smith and Richard Riakporhe. Funnily enough, Richard Riakporhe beat Chris Billum-Smith the only time he's lost a number of years ago before they were both at world level. But it would seem Jai's targeting the winner of this fight. I don't believe there's any Australian telecast details or anything like that, so it might be a bit of a funny one to find, but it's certainly a fight with implications for Jai. How do you sort of see both of those guys coming up? A react Paul Bill and Smith, have they both been on your radar? How do you see Jai sort of fitting in with them?
I think it's just blatantly obvious. Neither one of them wants a bar of Jai. That's pretty obvious because, I mean, you look at the interviews they've done, have not brought up Jai's name at all unless it's been really pressed on them about it. And even when that has happened, both of them have sort of pretty much just flobbed it off. So, look, I think Bill and Smith actually gets the job done this time. I think he avenges that loss. But I just think it doesn't really matter who wins. Jai Pattaya takes care of them both pretty comfortably, if you ask me. And I would think now that Jai's had that second win over Breedis, that he's in heavyweight mode now. Maybe he's had a little bit of a rethink because of those last 3 rounds, and maybe he's maybe not quite there yet, or as fast as maybe he wants to go. But I just think he's looking at the heavyweight division now. So there's plenty of big fights out there for us, some real juicy fights as far as money goes. And I know he wants to unify, but unless there was that possibility of Usyk maybe coming back down, I'm not too stressed if he just moved up and got on with it, to be honest. But I know he does want to unify, but it is hard to keep belts these days, even when you do unify. So is it really worth going through all that, maybe another 2 years of being at cruiserweight when you're not really sure what's going to happen at the end of it?
Wow, okay. So I wasn't even thinking about sort of that heavyweight move just yet, but you've got the gears turning in my head now. Say Jai hypothetically was to go to heavyweight next, where would you want to sort of see him test the waters first? Like, at what level would you be looking at?
Yeah, look, I think ideally he might want to maybe wait 1 or 2 more fights, and then after that I'm sure he could jump straight into the big guys in that division, a bit like Usyk did. I think he had maybe 1 or 2 sort of, you call them tune-up fights, whatever you might want to call them, a little bit of a foray into the division. But I think if he wants to go even a little bit quicker and maybe even do it next, then I'll probably say maybe start on the upper or the outer regions of the top 15 or 20 heavyweights out there and just sort of make your way in it, like Holyfield did back in the day. Spinks didn't. He jumped straight in, didn't he? But I remember Holyfield. I remember his first fight was against James Quick Tillis, a really good, tough, durable heavyweight who gave him the rounds but wasn't really a chance to beat him. And it really just, he allowed himself to grow into the division. That's what I would probably suggest with Jai if he's going to do it, very soon, is to just take your time. He's only 28. Maybe get 3 or 4 of those fringe sort of contenders and then be ready to pounce from there. But I think he's got all the tools in the world to be able to do it. I think if Alexander Usyk can do it, then Jai Pattaya can 100% do it.
So do you reckon, we know Usyk sort of likes to sit around that 220-pound mark, which is small in this era, but it's been absolutely flawless so far. Do you reckon Jai sort of has the frame to carry that sort of similar weight?
Yeah, and that's why I think he'd be a great heavyweight, because he's got that frame to be able to do it. And I think, I can't remember what he said, but I've got a feeling Jai, he comes down in weight a fair bit. So I've got a feeling he would probably walk around about the same weight as what Usyk would walk around at. And Usyk said just recently he does have to eat up to the limit. So I just think Jai's frame, I think his style is really well made for the heavyweights as well. He's quick on his feet, very good footwork, very good angles, good hand speed. The only probably question is the power side of things, but I don't think Holyfield was a big puncher. Usyk's not a big puncher. Yes, they can whack, but they're not big heavyweight punchers, but they get around that by being so good technically. Having great endurance, good work rate, very good work rate, and I think that's what gets them through, and that's why I think that Jai Pattaya would make it as a heavyweight. And another reason why I think his stablemate, Justice Huni, will be a good heavyweight eventually, because the same thing, excellent skills, great footwork, and a really high work rate that really tends to bother those elite heavyweights. And we saw it a little bit on the Fury Usyk undercard. Was it that? No, it wasn't. Was it with Dubois and Hrgovic? That might have been the 5 versus 5. The work rate that Dubois used in that fight against Hrgovic just had him gassed after 5 rounds. And that's why I think Jai Pattaya is going to be so good at heavyweight, because like Usyk and Holyfield before him, that really high work rate sorts out those pretenders rather than the contenders at heavyweight.
Yeah, and you mentioned Justice Huni there. And I love that he's only worked with Mark Wilson for that one fight, but seemingly be around Jai. You obviously know a lot more about Mark Wilson than most. To me, from the outside looking in, he really seems to be a box-first trainer, which is great for Justice. I have no idea why people have been so heavy on him for not being able to knock guys out and stuff. Especially at heavyweight, if you can box these guys' ears off for 10 rounds and not get hit, just do that. Like, I have no issues with that. But knowing Mark Wilson a little bit more, how would you sort of, I guess, describe his sort of training style and his philosophy on the sport?
Yeah, look, Mark was a very, very good amateur trainer. I think he was on a lot of national teams, and he's got a very, very good stable. He's always had a really good young amateur team. So I think what it is, probably the fact that he's not a renowned pro trainer has almost worked in well with both Justice and Jai, because he just does the absolute basics, or he focuses on the absolute basics more than maybe the average trainer does. He's very close to his fighters. You can see that he doesn't do a lot of interviews. He's not really an outgoing type of coach, but I think he gets very close to his fighters, works with them very, very intimately at the gym, and I just think he just strips back all the complexities of boxing sometimes, and he's just an old-fashioned type of trainer who just focuses on the absolute basics and getting them right, and that's what I think has got Justice and Jai there so far, because he's not that well known in world circles as far as being an elite coach, but the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? He's got two absolute gun heavyweights there, and they're just improving all the time. But I just think the fact that he's very on the level with his guys, and if that makes sense, but he's just a very hands-on, old-fashioned type of coach who just gives his charges everything and doesn't get too caught up in the whole, world of professional boxing.
Yeah, it might have been a Freudian slip there, Lynden, when he said he's got two gun heavyweights. But like I said, the gears are turning in my head. You might know more than us about Jai, but I won't hold you to that.
Fighters anyway.
No, excellent. Well, thanks for letting us know about that. But we'll move on to the big one, especially from an Australian perspective. We've got Liam Parrow over in Puerto Rico. I believe he landed today or the day before. He's been out in Florida training. And to continue the theme of Aussies not getting easy world title shots against mugs, he's got to take on a bit of a beast. Subriel Matias, 20-1 with 20 knockouts. He's knocked out everyone he's ever fought. He's going into the Lions Den, into the guy's backyard. It's going to be one hell of a tough fight. It's certainly not an unwinnable one, but how do you we'll get into it a little bit deeper, but just straight off the bat, what were your thoughts when this fight first got announced?
Yeah, I was surprised. Not surprised. I was not surprised that Matias chose Liam Parrow. I mean, he's a very, very good young fighter. I was surprised at probably the reaction of it, that so many people, including a lot of Aussies, didn't give Liam much of a chance. Now, I'm one of the opposite. I think the only thing that I think makes it really hard for Liam is the fact it's in Puerto Rico, in his hometown, Matias' hometown. It's always tough to go to your opponent's hometown. It's one thing to meet him on neutral turf like the US or whatever it might be, or Saudi Arabia these days, but that's probably the hardest thing for me. But just head-to-head, I think we've all been, well, not me, but a lot of fight fans out there and experts have been just all caught up with the fact he's had, I think, are they nearly all knockouts, I think, in his record? I think he's 21 and 0.
They all are. Yeah.
He's made a few fighters quit. He's tough. He's hard. He can punch. He's a very, very good fighter. But for me, I give Liam a really good chance, because I know Liam's resume isn't exactly popping with big names either, but he's a super talented young guy. Well, what is he, 28? So we'll call him young. But he's got all
younger than us.
He's very good technically, very good with his feet, very good, quick with his hands, and can punch. And I just haven't seen anything from Matias yet against that real elite competition that makes me think that Liam Parrow has no chance. Now, as I said, it's going to be bloody hard because it's in Puerto Rico, and all the everything is stacked in Matias's favour. But I just think head-to-head, fighter for fighter, all that aside, I think Liam Parrow stands a very, very good chance. If he goes over there and fights the way we all think he can fight, I think he's got every chance to take that title, because I just haven't been that I've been impressed with Matias's performances. I just haven't been impressed by the level of his competition. So it's really hard to gauge the worth of someone if they haven't fought those real top elite fighters. And until he fights the likes of obviously Haney and not so much Garcia because he's probably going to move to welterweight, but Prograis and Haney and these types of guys, and of course Teofimo Lopez, I just don't think we can judge him as being right at their level. So I think Liam Paro's got a great chance of winning that belt.
Yeah, absolutely. I was shocked at sort of how dismissive especially the overseas crowd have been of Liam's chances, which just is always the way. They're just admitting they've never seen him before. He's seemingly
hasn't exactly been on national TV multiple times over there, so I get it.
Yeah.
But even the Aussie fans that have just said, "Oh, it's Matthias. You can't possibly beat Matthias." Well, why? We saw it 3 years ago when George Kambosos beat Teofimo Lopez. I'll never doubt an Aussie ever again after that fight, I tell you, because and looking back in the day with Harding over Andrees and Fennick over Nelson, even though it was a draw, you know what I'm saying? It's just, never underestimate the Aussies. And I just think Liam looks like he's got a really good mindset at the moment. He looks really happy and content over there with his team there. And I just think he's a big chance. I really do.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And I had Alfie DiCarlo on the pod maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it was before Liam was like really at world level, still with Ace at the time. And he just said a couple of things to me. Obviously had to be a bit cagey about sort of how much information he was giving away, but there were just a couple of things that stood out. And one, which is, it is basic, pardon the pun, but he just said basics win fights. Very similar to how you were talking about Mark Wilson. If you do the basics well, you're going to be hard to beat. Liam has great fundamentals. The other thing that Alfie said, which I love particularly for this matchup, he goes, we never want to do anything too crazy. We just want to turn the screws each round, just slowly but surely, because we've seen in Subriel Matias' last fights, he can be hit. Guys get carried away and flat-footed and stand in front of him and give him that opportunity to throw those combinations mid-range. We know Alfie DiCarlo and Liam himself are going to devise a game plan, obviously not to put themselves in a position where Matias is at his strongest. And the other thing that has always struck me about Liam, maybe not necessarily the power, but he can catch guys, but his control of distance. Even when he was coming through the Australian level, he just has that natural ability to control range. So you have to think with sort of those two sort of training principles from Alfie when he devises game plans, and Liam's natural ability to control distance and with superior footwork. Man, I think we're in for a massive shot here.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. As I said, and look, the thing is, another thing factor to consider is that Liam Paro and Alfie DiCarlo and the whole team, and I see Stephen Edwards, the Cupman's over there. I love Steve. He's a really good guy to be around, and obviously that's why Jeff Horn had him there as well. You need those types of guys around you being really comfortable within that team environment, and they would know everything about Matias. They would have studied him comprehensively. They would know all about it. And I must admit, was his last fight against a Russian, I thought he was going to be completely blown out of there and ended up coming back and stopping in 5 or 6 rounds, whatever. So we know what he can offer, and Team Paro will 100% know what he offers. On the other hand, I've got no doubt that Matias' team will just be looking at this as just a pretty easy homecoming type of fight that sort of prolongs him on or progresses him on to bigger fights down the track. So that's a massive advantage for Liam, because we saw it again with George Kambosos and Lopez 3 years ago. Exactly the same sort of thing happened. So that's another thing he's got up his sleeve as well. But all that aside, I'm with you. I think he does everything really, really well, Liam. And I'll say it again, I just think he's every chance to beat Matias. And I think the way he does it, I think Matias does tend to start slowly and tends to just get himself into the fight. Now, the mistake that a lot of those other guys have made is they've allowed him to get close range and find his rhythm and everything else and been overrun. I just think Liam, again, knowing everything there is to know about Matias' style, will start quickly, maybe bank the first 2 or 3 rounds and won't be dragged into a slugfest with Matias. He'll use his angles, keep his distance, box smart. And I think if he does that, I think he can get a lot of early rounds. And even if Matias comes back later on in the fight, I think Liam can go with him. So again, that's why I think he can win the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been based in Las Vegas for the last couple of camps, excuse me, for training. Obviously, Alfie's still taken the lead position in the corner for fight night, but is the guy he's working with over there Steve Rolls or Steve Rowlands? Or do you?
Yeah, Steve has got the City Gym in Vegas. I've been there a few times with the twins, and I met him in Oklahoma last year. He was there when George fought Maxie Hughes. And really, really good guy. Just actually, he's an excellent guy, to be honest, because he said, look, when you're in Vegas next, make sure you come and say good day and all that sort of stuff, which is unbelievable for someone to say that. But he runs a good gym there. Not necessarily a massive boxing background, but he's got a great gym. A lot of gunfighters train there. And, it's just a really good environment for him there. So, look, it all, again, comes back to being happy, being comfortable. And again, it sounds like Liam has ticked all the boxes as far as being ready to go.
Yeah, and it seems like since Liam spent the last couple of camps over there, I mean, the Brock Jarvis fight was sort of hard to, gauge anything out of, but the first fight with the other Puerto Rican, Yomar Alamo, just seemed he's way too uncharacteristically aggressive early, got dropped, sort of, I think he recovered, but he was just forcing everything. The Montana Love fight was such a better blend. It looks like, at least to me, you'll be able to speak on this much better than I can, but the change they've tried to make, or maybe the influence of Steve Rowlands just that little bit, is trying to get Liam to be a little bit more aggressive, not necessarily just take that back foot position the entire time. But now I think, Liam's had a few camps over there. As you mentioned, the sparring's amazing. We can certainly see a position where, and taken into, again, I've just got to see it into my brain from those couple of years when I've said turn the screws, and I'm kind of thinking, look, can we see Liam control things early, turn the screws late, tire out Matthias a little bit? Now he's working with Steve Rowlands again, that little bit more aggressive, and even possibly forcing a late stoppage. My Aussie bias is coming out here, but it's certainly a scenario. Do you see that as a likely way the fight could play out?
Look, anything's possible, I think. And I'll just say as well, it's probably a credit to Alfie DiCarlo as well, and to Liam, in that Alfie's, again, not a world-renowned trainer. He's done an excellent job with Liam, obviously, but has probably identified some areas where he needs some help, maybe needs someone like Steve to come in there who's been around the industry for such a long time and add him to the team. So that's probably the first thing I give Liam and Alfie a lot of credit for, but not thinking, well, we can do it just by ourselves. But I think the fact I think he lived over there for, was it nearly a couple of years? He was predominantly over there. I've seen him.
Seemed like it, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually caught up with Liam a couple of times when we were there, just in Vegas, and just said g'day and all. He's such a quiet guy, we'll say. You don't get much out of him, but lovely guy too, though. But I just think the fact that they've, again, realised where they probably needs a little bit of help, the experience that he would have got, and you talk about how he's improved over the last couple of fights, that would have a lot to do with being based in Vegas, being around the gyms all the time, and it is a way of life over there. And I'm not sure if anyone, sure there's people out there that are listening that have been to not just Vegas but America. They live in the gyms over there. They're sparring all the time. They're always learning. They've got so many different sparring partners and different trainers to sort of lean on and learn from. And I just think that is what's happened to Liam over there. He's really adapted or been absorbed into the American boxing culture. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of improvement with him now. He seems a lot more relaxed, a lot more focused, a lot more confident. And I think that's got to do with just being in the gyms over there for the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, whatever it's been. And that's why I think we're seeing the maturity that we see now from Liam. And that's why I'll always encourage any Australian fighter, if they can, amateur or pro, to get over there and get involved in the system over there. Because it's not just, well, I'll go to the gym and train for a couple of hours and go home. These guys sometimes spend 5 or 6 hours at the gym. Yes, a lot of the time it's just talking and being around the gym, but they're gym rats. They live in the gym, and it just becomes part of their life. It's their full-time job, and I think that's the reason why we've seen that improvement from Liam, because he's adopted that or embraced that American boxing culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think anyone listening to this clearly knows who we're both going to tip come Sunday morning our time. But do you have an official prediction or?
No, I was going to say, mate, it's more hope more than anything. I'm not quite sure exactly who's going to win. Look, on paper, with everything that I've said, you would probably have to, probably tip Matthias to win, but it's more hoping from Lee. I think he's more than capable of winning. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, if you look at it for what it is, you would probably have to tip Matthias. But I'm not expecting. I'm more hoping, but I just think Liam can do it. So without sort of rolling out a 100% ironclad prediction, I think Liam can do it, and I'll be as the Americans say, rooting for him to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it early when you said, the hardest thing's probably going to be doing it over there.
Yeah.
Everything's stacked against him. If it was on neutral territory in America, maybe it'd be different. But no, I'm the same. I'm gonna just hopefully will Paro on points into existence. But
Yeah, I'll go for Paro on points too. Then just to get it.
All right, fair enough. But that's not the only fight that day. We've got a pretty big card over in America. I mean, I'll probably be catching up on this later because it clashes directly with Liam's fight. But Tank Davis is back against Frank Martin. David Benavidez stepping up to light heavyweight against Alexander Gvozdyk. Carlos Adames and Terrell Gorchet, which is a fight I never thought we'd see, but it's happening, I guess. And a pretty good, as you spoke about, sort of the changing of the guard at 140 pounds and these young sort of prospects coming through. A really good fight of beatens, Alberto Puello and Gary Antoine Russell. It's a pretty good card. I mean, last time you were on the pod, Lynden, we had a pretty robust conversation about the Australian pay-per-view scene, I guess we could call it. I'm not saying this is a bad card, but I don't know if it's worth $80 in America, but that's their problem, I guess.
I think it's $50 here, which is even a little bit on the high side, really, compared to other cards.
Yeah, does anything sort of jump out at you there? I mean, it's not really the fights we want for David Benavidez or Tank, but it's the fights we're getting. But does anything jump out at you?
Not really, mate. Look, I think Tank Davis gets the job done over Frank Martin. I think the Frank Martin will bring it. I did see today that Davis didn't turn up to the grand arrivals, which would have been a little bit disappointing for the fans over there.
Was he arrested again?
No, he just decided he wasn't going to turn up, which is
okay.
Seems to be the way the fighters act these days, don't they? It's all about them. Don't worry about the fans that have all paid to get there. But anyways, I think Davis, maybe stops Martin late. I think Benavidez gets the job done against is it Gvozdyk?
Something like that. I don't know.
I'm hopeless with. So I expect him to get the job done. And look, it's interesting to see Gorchet in a world title fight. But I would think that is it Adames? That's how you pronounce it. A lot of people say it's different. Adames.
I just guess on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I'll go to YouTube and try and see how the announcers do it. But they all say it differently as well. But we'll say Adames. I think he gets the job done over Gorchet, he's a tough guy. He's an honest guy. But I think Tim showed that he's probably not really at that real top level. And I think Adames is. And I think he wins that on points.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, it's probably not anything I'll watch live, but I'll catch up on a few of them later on. But we'll move back to the Australian scene a little bit if we can. Lynden, I'm really keen to get your thoughts here. Since last time we spoke, Ace have pivoted pretty much sensationally. I can't really fault it at all for a relatively new venture sort of rolling out. They've formed the Premier Boxing Series, partnered with 7plus, which is free-to-air national coverage. Anyone with a mobile phone can tune in and watch these fights, and they're just putting on classic Ace-style matchups. I mean, maybe if there is a negative route to take, which I'm certainly not, but I've seen people make these comments that, the fights aren't exactly of the highest level quality. It's more of kind of for better or worse, a state level, but mate, for as long as I've been watching the sport, Ace have always put on the best shows and the most fun matchups, so I have no issues with that. But they're back. They're doing a team up with Team Alice down in Melbourne, our neck of the woods, Lynden. Mitchell Leakes fighting Jack Brubaker for the Australian middleweight title. Lucas Miller and Matt Sheen in a good fight at light heavyweight, which should be fun, and there's some stuff on the undercard. They've also got a banger of a show coming up on the 20th of July. This one is just absolute fireworks with Rocky Ogden in the rematch with Cheng Yang. Dylan Biggs is back with Marcus Haywood. Ibby Bella and Jalen Tate is a sensational fight. We can get into the specific matchups, but I sort of wanted to have a little bit chat to you more broadly, obviously with your experience in the sport as a fighter, a fan, a traveler overseas, and also a promoter. Like, this has just been, in the last sort of couple of months, it's still so new and still going through many different forms to what it'll ultimately end up being. But this just seems like an absolute home run. What have you made of the PBS so far?
Absolutely love it. I had no doubt that it would be a really good partnership. I've got a lot of respect for Angelo DiCarlo and Ace Boxing. They've always put on great events, always quality events, always 50-50 fights, and just always puts on those great events, and sometimes to the detriment of actually making a profit. So I was really happy that would be the case. I must admit, I was a little bit dubious that they could put on great event after great event when they've got to do one a month. It's one thing when you do 3 or 4 a year. It's another one when you've got to back up every single month. And as we know, Aussie boxing fans, well, boxing fans in general can be pretty fickle and pretty hard to please sometimes. It is free, remember. It's not like you got to pay for it. But I was one that thought, can they measure up month after month after month? And I think they have. I think what was the last one? That might have been, I won't say the weaker one, but one that maybe wasn't as stacked as some of the other ones. But I love the 5-round concept and everything else. But these two next shows coming up, and I was actually worried too, by the way, that with Angelo stepping back, that Ace Boxing might actually step away from the whole thing. But it looks like they're actually going to just outsource maybe half of those events per year, which I think is a great idea. Team Ellis in Melbourne's good promoters, although they have more focused on the novelty cards recently, the reality TV stars. I actually thought maybe Wildfighter might have got it with Will Tomlinson, who's doing great things as well. But look, it's a great card. I think Leak and Brubaker should be a really, really good fight. Love the Matt Sheehan and Lucas Miller fight on the undercard as well. But that July 20 card, that is a ripper. Jalen Tate, Ibby Bella promoted half a dozen of Ibby's fights back in the day before his comeback. And I think he'll give Jalen Tate a very, very good fight in that one. So I'm really looking forward to it. And if they can continue this, I think it's going to be probably the best partnership and promotion in Australia. And I know that's a bold statement with what No Limit's got with Fox Sports, but I think No Limit could learn a hell of a lot by looking at what the model that Ace Boxing Premier Boxing Series is taking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned I did the last podcast with Anthony Cox. Shout out to Coxie. He did give us a little bit of info, and nothing official, but talks he's had with the organisers and stuff of the PBS have sort of indicated that they are open to working with multiple different promoters, and presumably Wildfighter, Dragonfire was mentioned, I believe. So
yeah, get it up in Perth. I mean, Tony and Angelo Hyder over there. Hey, do it, Tony Tolch. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, you're right. But who would have thought that Johnny Come Latelys in No Limit would have anything to learn from some 25-year vets? But anyway, what can you do?
Without getting stuck in No Limit, I think have been great for Aussie boxing up to a point, but seem like they're very, very good businessmen, but still learning as far as being a boxing businessman, and they don't get much more experience than Enzo DiCarlo and with Ace Boxing. So look, I think hopefully they might sort of look at what Ace Boxing is doing, well, all the other promoters are doing with the PBS, and they might just tweak a few things from their end and maybe just invest a little bit more into the free-to-air shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Rising tide lifts all boats, so it's a massive positive. But also, we just spoke about Wildfighter. Wildfighter have got a pretty good show coming up on the 29th of June. Max Reeves is fighting for the IBO Youth Light Heavyweight title against Tongo. I think I put extra Tongo. Sorry, my apologies. And a really good fight on the undercard. Caesar Affigan and Lockie O'Shea, two the most recent Australian welterweight title losses fighting off, which is an awesome matchup. It didn't even occur to me. I think there's
good fight too, the girls, Jensen and DD Hobbs.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. What have you made of, again, similar question to the PBS, and Will Tomlinson has done such a great job with Wildfighter from the very first event. Alvin, you can speak to this better than I can in terms of the promotion and the production and like how good the ring looked. It was a TV-ready product from the very first show, which is a massive credit to him and the investment he's made. But another solid Wildfighter show. He's got a great reputation and a great track record already, Will. What have you made of the Wildfighter journey so far?
I'm a big fan of what Will's doing with Wildfighter. We actually had him on Talking Boxing the other night on my show to discuss the What I like about him is he invests in his shows. I tried to do as well. It's always hard with limited resources, but he puts on great fights for starters. But you're right, invest in the production. I think in the past too, when he does his pay-per-views, he has a full-on proper, not just a commentary team, but a hosting team as well. He just does a really good job with all that, and I'm really hoping that he gets his opportunity. I know he has spoken to some of those other promoters out there working in with him and with the TV networks, and I know he has been frustrated in the past of maybe not getting his opportunity. But I think if he just continues the way he's going, who knows, there might be another streaming service that wants to get involved. But as I said, I like his cards. Always good fights, and he invests heavily in everything to do with his shows. The venue's great as well, the Pullman. I'm a big fan of what Will's doing, and let's hope he gets his opportunity down the track.
Yeah, 100%. And could you give us any sort of insight on Tongo Tongo? Because I've never seen any footage of this guy, but the record, he just looks like a destroyer, and he's got a reputation too.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of him, to be honest. I've done the box rec thing and all that sort of stuff, as we all do. But look, I've got a feeling if he's been selected by Will to fight, who is it? Reeves, is it?
Max Reeves, yeah.
Reeves, yeah. Is the IBO youth?
IBO youth, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got no doubt, being the main event, the guy will be able to fight, no doubt, because Will would not put in a what do you call a spud or a tomato can, whatever they call them these days, if it's going to be the main event on his promotion. Sometimes we can get away with the odd one or two on the undercard, but you cannot get away with it in the main event. So I've got no doubt this guy will come to fight and it'll be a ripper.
And kind of a bit of a pivot, Linda, but I didn't actually have it written down, but I just remembered. I was at the show you promoted at the State Basketball Centre, Stanislav Kashanov, when he fought Jade Mitchell. Just thinking of Max Reeves, then they had that weird, when Jade fought him, there was the head clash and it was a TKO loss and then got changed to a no contest. But we haven't seen Jade since. Do you know what's going on with Jade? Is he sort of unofficially retired or is he coming back? Or what's...
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Jade for a little bit. But I just get the feeling that might be the case. That state basketball show, I've got to thank Jade because he saved that show. That was probably the most stressful and underwhelming fight card that I ever put on, to be honest. The undercard in the weeks leading up to that card, it all just fell apart. We had a lot of late replacements. So the undercard, you were there, you would have seen it, but it was it was a tough sell. Luckily, Jade and the Russian, what was his name again?
Kashtanov.
Kashtanov, that's him. They put on a great fight on the night and sort of semi-saved the event. But with Jade, he did fight after that and lost to Isvan Zilik. That was my last show, actually. That was at the St Kilda Town Hall. I think that was the night also that Liam Wilson had that knockout against
Quadro.
Quattro, whatever his name was. Yeah, that was a good card. But I think since then, mate, obviously the Reeves fight after that, obviously with the cut eye, and I think he beat someone else as well in one of the No Limit shows. But I just get a feeling a lot of setbacks for Jade. He's had another baby since then. I just got a feeling at 35 years old or whatever he is now that it's probably might have just passed Jade. And I've just, how do I say this nicely? Let's just say he's probably a kilo or two above his fighting weight at the moment, which Jade has got a tendency to do. But look, either way, if that is the case, good luck to Jade going forward. He's got a very good business and obviously a lovely family, so I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, great guy and good commentator too. You could definitely just move into the TV stuff for sure.
I've also said it a couple of times. I think with some of the people they do have on some of these streams and on Main Event or whatever it might be, Fox Sports, whatever it might be, that I think Jade would easily beat some of those guys they have on that. So I think they get them on just because of certain things. They might, they're journalists and they're not real boxing people. I think we need people that are very well spoken, but also have a very good knowledge of boxing, and that's of course is Jade.
Absolutely. Shout out to Trees opposite restaurants as well. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. But mate, we'll move on to the following day, Sunday the 30th, live and free on DAZN, a fight I am pumped about. I'm so pumped for this. Juan Francisco Estrada back since about 18 months, 2 years possibly, since the third Chocolatito fight, defending his WBC super flyweight title against Jesse Bam Rodriguez. Also, we've got Sonny Edwards and Adrian Curiel coming back after their world title losses on the undercard. It's a banger of a little card. I love it when Matchroom put on these type of shows. They're always so much fun. But that main event, Lynden, how pumped up are you for that?
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I've always been a big fan of Estrada. Especially we saw him live in LA once on one of the Superfly tournaments that they put on, all the shows at the Starbucks. We were there. I was actually there with the twins watching the Superfly tournament. If you can believe that, sitting there with the Maloney twins I'm talking about, and watching the Superfly tournament. Who was there? I think in a way might have fought on the card. Of course, Jason fought him. Andrew was, of course, supposed to fight Quadros, but that obviously fell over. But to watch all those guys, Brian Valora and all those, who's the Thai guy, Russ Varnell?
Saw Rung Vasai?
Yeah, all those guys on there. It was amazing to sit there and watch with the twins. All those guys they could potentially fight. But all that aside, I've been a big fan of Estrada since watching him then, and just a tough guy. I think Bam for me would be the favourite. He's he's a great up and coming young fighter, obviously world champion as well. I just get the feeling that Estrada, who hasn't, I don't think he's even had a fight since he beat Chocolatito. I think the age and inactivity might catch up with him, and I think it might be a classic passing of the torch situation. And I think that Bam gets the job done over Estrada, but it should be a great fight. That's on DAZN as well, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, for free on DAZN on that Sunday the 30th Australian time. But did you see the recent photos that Bam posted of he was sparring Chocolatito?
I did see that, yeah. And look,
how big does he look?
Yeah, he does. And look, a lot was made of that on different podcasts and YouTube channels and all the rest of it. But look, the main thing is sparring is sparring. I know you probably hear that a lot. And it was a great spar, but I think this whole thing about, making all these assertions based on that spar, I think the main thing is it would have been one hell of a spar to see, especially live with Chocolatito and Bam going at it. But you can't get much better sparring than Chocolatito, and I think it'll hold Bam in good stead, and that's probably another reason why he'll get the job done over Estrada.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't too caught up in who won. I just loved that they were working together. Apparently, they're friends and they have great respect for him.
You don't see that often where you've got a fighter like Chocolatito helping maybe a potential opponent, really. I mean, Chocolatito hasn't officially retired, so I think he's still got a little bit left. So who knows? Maybe Chocolatito fights the winner. Who knows?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing for me that I took out of that, pardon the pun, but was that just the frame and the size of Jesse Bam. Like, he's only 23 or 24. He's getting bigger, and Chocolatito's going to bantamweight apparently. So you look how big and sort of wide across the shoulders Jesse's getting now. You could see him sort of certainly even moving up through the weights even more,
Maybe we'll get Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani or someone like that down the track. What a fight that is.
Oh, geez, you're getting the gears going in my head, Lynden. That's, again.
I still want that all-Japanese super fight, Nakatani and Inoue. I think that would be an absolute ripper.
Oh, Jesus, probably likely too. Who knows what could happen. But we'll jump back onto the Australian scene. Wednesday, the 3rd of July. This is a free show on Fox and KO from No Limit, but this is an excellent matchup. This is exactly what one of these main events should look like. Nathaniel May and Jose Matias Romero. How rapt were you when you saw that this was getting the spotlight of that free show, and they put this type of quality of a fight as the main event?
Yeah, we spoke earlier about maybe No Limit taking a leaf out of the Premier Boxing Series book, and I think they have. And I've been very critical of some of the No Limit shows they put on, especially with the resources they have. But fully take my hat off to them in this instance here, because it looks like they've invested a fair bit into getting him over here. I think Nathaniel May will see what he's got left. Has he fought since he did fight, didn't he, since the England loss? That was he went from main event to the opening the card on a 6-round or 4-round or whatever it was at the time. So I'm glad to see him back as the main event, and No Limit investing in the main event on their card. There's been that many cards. I can't even remember who were the undercard fights, because all the cards seem to mesh into each other at the moment. But that main event alone, I think that's going to be a great fight. And again, free on Fox. Hats off to No Limit for putting that on for us.
Oh, absolutely. And I've only seen Jose Matias Romero. He's 28-3. I've seen 3 of his fights, but unfortunately I've only seen his 3 losses. But Isaac Cruz at lightweight, Michelle Rivera at super lightweight, and Roberto Ramirez at featherweight. So I believe this fight's at super feather, but he only got stopped by Ramirez. So he went on points at lightweight and 140 pounds with Michelle Rivera and Isaac Cruz. So the guy's durable. So I love this matchup. It's not one that I would have thought of, but when I saw it, and I'll admit I had to quickly box rec Romero, but this is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I get the impression that maybe Nathaniel May hasn't been overly impressive. Let's face it. He lost to England and then I don't think he looked in anywhere near decent shape in his last fight. So I've got a feeling that No Limit have said, okay, this is a bit of sink or swim situation here. We're going to invest in you. You need to show us what you've got. You've got to get to super featherweight for starters. We'll bring in that sink or swim type of opponent for you, and then at least we know where we're at. So if he gets the win, of course, they can invest more in him and take him to the next step. And if he loses, well, at least they know where they stand, or both parties know where they stand. So I think it's a really good fight for free to air, and I can't wait. There's so many good cards coming up all over the place at the moment. So again, it's great to see the promoters investing in their shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just looked up the undercard there. So on BoxRec, there's two female fights that are listed. Amber Amelia is fighting Connie Brown, and Shay Keneally's fighting Angie Rocha. So, good spotlight. But just going off the BoxRec, I can't say I'm an expert on sort of those opponents there for the two female fights. But, that main event, they can put anything on it. That main event saves it for free. So.
100%. And look, I think it's those Wednesday night shows. I think they only have 4 fights anyway, don't they? And I think I love the fact they put the girls on as well. Amber Amelia, I love watching her fight. As Glenn Jennings calls her, the pocket rocket. And nearly too. Look, is that a world title fight, that one, or is that just
world light heavyweight title? Yeah.
So again, hats off to No Limit. I think they've got themselves back on track. Those first few shows earlier in the year left a lot to be desired, but really good now. They seem to have found their feet and looked at what some of their rivals are doing, and I think hopefully this is a sign of things to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier when we were talking about Estrada and Bam Rodriguez that you were over there and you mentioned the Maloneys, and there's another fight that has potential Andrew Maloney implications as well. Sunday the 7th of July, we got Kazuto Ioka fighting Fernando Martinez in a WBA and IBF super flyweight title clash. Andy, over the years, has kind of been linked to Kazuto Ioka at times. I believe he beat Fernando Martinez in the amateurs at some tournament. Obviously, Andrew had the loss with Pedro Guevara, which I thought he won, but I'm probably biased, but I really thought he did enough to win that fight. But what do you make of Ioka and Martinez? And thank God Ioka's finally found himself in a big fight after a few years, and he's one of my favourite fighters, so I'm super pumped for that one. But and then a little bit more widely, how do you feel about Andrew Maloney getting back another chance, coming maybe not the back nine of his career, but certainly he's a seasoned campaigner at this point?
Yeah, well, what is he, 32? I think he is now. So definitely, maybe we'll call it the back nine anyway.
When I said that, I was like, it is the back nine.
The back nine. But, look, I thought it was so unlucky in that last fight. I thought he did enough to win. It's a little bit different when you're there live to when you're watching on TV. We were just up in the stands, and I thought he'd won maybe 8. Worst case 7 of the 12 rounds, but I did see a lot of feedback on social media and everything else saying that that he didn't get the job done. So look, it's hard to say. All I know is, judging by his body language and just a few messages with him after the fight, he was 100% convinced that he did enough to win, and really to the extent that he almost put the cue in the rack in the last couple of rounds, which is obviously to his detriment because he needed to win those rounds. But look, I think Ioka has been on his radar for quite some time. I know he wanted to fight him maybe instead of Nakatani. Didn't obviously work out that way. But look, the good thing about, I suppose, both Maloney boys is that they don't dwell on things for too long. Andrew especially has had a couple of kicks in the guts over the years. Let's face it, with the Franco eye and the way, and they studied the vision for half an hour and still couldn't find a headbutt, but they ruled it a headbutt anyway. But he didn't let that get to him. He got straight back in there, earned another crack. I think the last fight, again, I thought he did enough to win, but already it was like a couple of days after the fight. I know there was the in-ring retirement and all that sort of stuff. I don't think any of us really believed he was going to retire. More frustration more than anything. But speaking to him now, he's super keen to get back in there, super keen to get another crack at a belt. And Jason Maloney, exactly the same. And I think Jason's even maybe talking about maybe going back to Japan, where he's apparently hot property over there. So at this stage of his career, he can get some paydays. We'll go back and maybe fight Inoue's brother. So there's plenty of opportunities for both guys. And again, I know them very well and promoted them for 10 fights. But all that aside, I've just got so much respect for fighters like the guys who just get on with it. They don't They don't expect any shortcuts. They don't expect any handouts or favours. They earn the shots by fighting regularly and against top opposition and fighting on the road. So full respect to the guys, and I really hope that both of them get another crack, which I'm sure they will. And let's hope they can both win world titles again down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said on the pod heaps of times they're my two favourite fighters, and it just depends which one of them's in the ring at the time as to who's 1A and 1B. But
lovely guys, they really are. And
yeah.
I first met them when they were both amateurs. You would not see any difference between either of them now that they've both been world champions and fought on the biggest cards in the world. So, and that's a sign of good human beings, not just good fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm in no position to give any young aspiring kid like any advice on boxing, but if anyone ever asked me, not that they would, I'll just say, just do what the Maloneys do. Carry yourself the way they carry themselves. Just copy them, they're perfect role models. So
100%. If I had young fighters, I'd be telling them to look straight at the Maloneys for role models, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll finish up now just with the last card. Wednesday, the 10th of July, main event pay-per-view. Yeah, look, we're probably the same as everyone listening to this when we saw it was a pay-per-view. It really shouldn't be, but it is. What can you do? Sam Goodman's staying busy against Chinoy Warrawat, which if anyone wants to box rec that, his name on box rec is Thatchtana Luangfon, and I can only find one fight of his second most recent fight is on YouTube against a guy that only has one name, but yeah, it's hard to find. Liam Wilson and Yusuf Dib, which is a really good fight, bounce back for Liam. I don't mind that at all. Billy Polkinghole was on the card. Polkinghorn, excuse me, is on the card. Yeah, it's not a bad card. I mean, would have loved it with the just to roll in a free event combined with the Nathaniel May Jose Matias Ribeiro fight. It would have been a banger and a good reward for the fans and a great exposure for Sam and Liam and all the fighters on the card. Unfortunately, it's hidden behind the paywall, but yeah, I think you gave us your sort of much more informed opinion last time on the pod, Lynden. I won't ask you to repeat yourself, but if anyone's worried about it, they can go back and give me an extra download a couple of months ago. But what do you make of the strategy by Sam? Staying busy is obviously mandatory for Inoue. I really can't see a fault in it. I like the activity. What's your sort of, from a promotional and sort of a fighter's perspective there?
Yeah, look, I like the fact he's keeping busy, and just like the Maloneys did and a few of the others have done, they've kept busy and earned their shot, and I like that. The only question or issue I suppose I'd probably bring up with it is apparently Sam was offered the fight. I don't know this 100%, this is just hearsay, but he was offered the fight with Inoue and turned the fight down for September because he had this fight planned. Now, my question, and this is a build as a world title eliminator. So the question I've got is why would you turn down a world title fight to fight in a world title eliminator? It just doesn't make sense. So I'm assuming it can't be right, but the source I got told by is very, very reliable. And again, why would you turn around a world title fight to fight a world title eliminator? It just doesn't make sense. But either way, all that aside, I like the fact that he's keeping busy. No doubt he'll probably get a fight within a way at the end of the year, which is great. And look, again, I give Sam full credit. I know a lot of people are saying it's pretty much suicide to go in there with Inoue, but I've got full respect for Sam for taking this fight, or when it does happen, of course, because Inoue is such as his nickname says, the monster. So I've got credit for him for that. But look, I think the undercard should be great. Looking forward to Liam Wilson, Dib. I think that's probably the fight more than any of them that I'm actually looking forward to the most. Yeah. But I've got a lot of respect for Liam and Yusuf Dib as well. But as far as the pay-per-view goes, like you said, I don't think it's worth anywhere near the money or being a pay-per-view whatsoever. But you got to remember, no limit are contracted to have X amount of pay-per-views per year. And they've got to dish them up, and sometimes it's probably not quite worthy of the money. But to keep that contract, they've got to keep putting the pay-per-views on. And unfortunately, this is the best they could come up with at this time. Maybe, like you said, Nathaniel May on that card as well might have just added to it. Might have just tipped it over as far as being acceptable, but I'm not quite sure just those two fights, those main two fights, are enough to fork out $60 or $70. But that's a conversation for another episode.
Yeah, absolutely. But Lynden, just to finish off, mate, obviously I'm looking at it now. We got the video on, but we only record the audio on this podcast. You got this amazing studio set up. Seems like you've taken Boxing Deep Dive to the next level, mate. What's the plans for the rest of the year? Have I know you'd sort of increased the output a little bit, doing sort of 2 or 3 shows a week now. What's what can we expect as fans sort of for the rest of the year from Boxing Deep Dive and yourself?
Yeah, it sort of evolves a little bit all the time, mate. I'm just trying to. We started this about 3 years ago, and I'm just trying to still get the right mix of different shows. So I've tried a lot of different things, and you're right, the studio probably far outweighs the amount of followers and views I get, but that's okay. I do something I always do it properly. But I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, the talking boxing on a Monday night, I love that. That's probably 2 hours of just talking with the fans out there. I love it. No real script, no real agenda. It's just press play and live, and away we go. So it's great. Early when I first started, I have to have a rundown list of about 20 things to talk about because I'm sitting there pretty much talking to myself for 2 hours. But right now we've got a lot of regular viewers and listeners on Spotify as well. But the other thing I really like doing that I've just adopted lately is the watch along. So when we do these, the big fights are on, I watch them live and have people come on and we watch it together and comment, and that's a lot of fun as well. And I've done a few different things along the line of normally on a Wednesday night I'll do dream fights and the pound for pound ratings and just where does such and such rate in the scheme of history, all those different things. I just love engaging with the audience. And from next year, I'm probably going to try and get overseas, maybe an extra time as well. Normally it's twice, but I'm going to try and get there a third time and take everyone along for the ride with my adventures. I did have a really good video done for the George Kambosos and Lomachenko event in Perth, but I accidentally deleted the video as it was uploading, so that did not go down too well. It was an hour-long video of our weekend in Perth, and I accidentally deleted the whole thing and all the footage. And anyway, long story short, I'm always trying to keep the content up, mate, and always trying to do things that other podcasters or YouTubers do to give people a different perspective. Because let's face it, there's a million boxing shows on YouTube, there's a million podcasts, and it's great. And I listen to a lot of different ones for a lot of different reasons. But for mine, it's always been to just do something a little bit different. And that's why I don't do a lot of interviews anymore, because you're interviewing the same fighters that get interviewed by every other podcast or YouTube channel. So I just try and do things that just take the listeners and the viewers to a different place than what they might get on other shows.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you do a fantastic job, mate. And have you got Mexican Independence weekend sort of circled for the next American trip?
Yeah, I'll be there September. So the second week of September. So I'll be there. I'm not quite sure who I'm going to watch at the moment. Fights are on special early in the year, so I just booked it. So I'm really hoping that Canelo fights on that weekend and doesn't get delayed or postponed or called off or whatever, because I might be just going over to the States for 2 weeks for a holiday. But I just love it. And as I said before, I am looking to get over there 3 times next year, and then maybe even an Aussie card as well, and just bring a little bit of that inside footage that you might not necessarily see, and take everyone along for the journey over there if they can't get over there themselves. Or hopefully my videos just give them an idea of what goes on in those big fights overseas.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it, Lynden. Like I mentioned, we live vicariously through you, and we're jealous, but you're doing it for all of us.
Oh, thanks, mate. Well, I have put it out there. Well, I haven't actually put it out there. I've had a few people put it out to me about maybe doing a tour at some stage and maybe putting it out there to who wants to come. Let's go, and we'll put a bit of a package together, and we can take half a dozen people or something over there for a trip and see what we can get up to.
Gee, that'd be good. The Boxing Deep Dive adventure. That'd be awesome.
Deep Dive boxing tours. Yep.
Excellent. Well, we'll finish it up there, Lynden. Thanks very much for your time, mate. I really appreciate it. Just stay on the line. I'll just have a quick little chat to you once we're done. But best of luck with the travels overseas. Best of luck with the show and whatever new ideas you come up with. And hopefully we can have a chat down the track.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me on.
All right, guys, and there we had it. That was my chat with Lynden Hosking, and thank you again to Lynden for the time. I had an absolute ball picking his brain on all the fights and all the storylines and all the happenings going on, not only in Australian boxing but in world boxing too. It's always so much fun to be able to talk to a guy like Lynden who just follows all this stuff and is more passionate than anyone. It's not like Lynden had to do any research or ask for what the topics were going to be. He covers this sport every single day from every single possible angle. So I just threw a couple of things that have piqued my interest too in the time that we had, and I thought it ended up making a great chat. And the thing I love the most about this podcast, as you guys know if you're regular listeners, is learning. And I always feel like I learn a lot when I speak to Lynden. So I thank him very much for his time. And guys, if you want to follow along with Lynden and his show on YouTube, Boxing Deep Dive, which is available globally for free, you can do that by clicking on the links in the episode of this description. So in there, I've got the YouTube link for watching, to be able to watch Boxing Deep Dive, and I've also got the Instagram handle link for Boxing Deep Dive, which will be able to alert you to the timing of when new shows come out, and new episodes. And as Lynden mentioned at the end of the chat there, he does multiple different things with his show, the interactive talking boxing show on a Monday night. He does the historical matchups. He does the watch-alongs. He's a really good innovator, and I think that's what made him such a great promoter when he was doing it. That's what I kind of hinted at the start to see maybe if he would take the bait and jump back into it. He's always thinking one or two steps ahead, and not that I'm saying that everything he hasn't attempted hasn't worked, but that's the way you innovate. You always want to just keep trying different things, and not everything's going to stick to the wall, but every now and then, or the majority of the time, things will stick, and it can take you in a different direction. And I just like the way Lynden approaches it. I like the way that he thinks about the sport. Obviously, his experience and his knowledge base in that help it a lot, but I just love that he always tries to think of ways to respectfully suggest improvement or change. I love it. Nothing's perfect. Everything's fluid. There's always room for improvement, and there's always room for an outside perspective. And I just really enjoy talking to Lynden and hearing his thoughts on the sport at multiple different levels. So shout out to Lynden, guys. Follow along with Boxing Deep Dive if you aren't already. It'll definitely help you enhance your enjoyment of the sport. But, guys, we are planning on coming back around about in another 4 weeks, which at this rate should put us somewhere around. Now, let me just get this up on BoxRec. That absolute banger on July 20th from the PBS and Ace Boxing. How good is that fight card? We spoke about it during the chat. I've turned the BoxRec page off, but Dylan Biggs is back against Marcus Haywood. Great bounce back fight, with all due respect to Marcus Haywood. I'm really enjoying that. Also, Dylan Biggs up at middleweight. He obviously struggled badly to get down to junior middleweight with the Nikita Tszyu fight and had the broken hand. So super pumped to see Dylan Biggs back. Absolute banger with Jalen Tate and Ibby Bella. That is a great fight that I never would have even put 2 and 2 together in my head to make that matchup. Again, I crossed off the card, but that's right, Rocky Ogden and Yang Chang of that upset just from a couple of months ago. Absolutely fantastic card. Sorry, guys, I'm losing my mind about that PBS card, but that will be around about the return date for the next episode. Nothing locked in concrete style, but give me a couple of weeks, guys, and I'll get to work on it. But yeah, guys, no TV schedule. That does not happen anymore. But if you want to reach out to me, you can email the pod at tuscpod@gmail.com. That's tuscpod@gmail.com. If you want to throw a tweet at me, you can do that at delivery_man2. Guys, if you want to jump on the Insta page, I'll also put the Instagram handle there. And I just learned how to screen record about 2 months ago. So sort of trying to make those posts a little bit better and less basic. But I'm terrible with technology, so you've got to give me a little bit of time and a little bit of patience on trying to get better with that stuff. So might even try to take a bit of a leaf out of Lynden's book and try and make that Instagram page a little bit better of a follow. But as I've always said, listening is more than enough, guys. And unbeknownst to me, this happened about 6 or 7 podcast episodes ago, or maybe 5 or 6, I'm not sure. But the program or the podcast hosting service that I use to upload the episodes to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that sort of stuff, it does it all automatically. it started releasing the podcast episodes to YouTube, which I didn't even know about. As you guys know, I don't record the audio. I don't record the video. We just record the audio. But apparently now I have a YouTube channel. That's TUSCPod on YouTube, TUSC space POD, and it just has the logo on the video, but it plays the entirety of the episode just audio style. So I know some pretty successful podcasts all over the world do that. The majority do video for sure. That's a whole new technological thing that will maybe end up learning one day, but at the moment I'm pretty maxed out just on the audio side of things. But if YouTube is your sort of more accessible platform that you like to consume content on, you can now listen to the pod on YouTube. So another little technological development. Slowly and surely we will get there one day to being up to date, or we'll probably just keep being left behind. You guys can be the judge on that. But anyway, guys, so yes, I will see you back here in about a month's time. We've got some absolute bangers coming up. Best of luck to Liam Parrow in Puerto Rico this weekend. Shout out to my man Stephen Edwards. Really hoping for some success for those guys who massively deserve it, and the DeCarlos. We've got some bangers, guys. Enjoy the fights, and I'll chat to you later.
Well, let's travel, may add up the change. Living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came.
Going all out.
I was living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came. I got the wake-up call, laughing through the window frame.